So today we're going to talk about something really special. It's a book that wasn't just written about people with schizophrenia, it was written by them. This is a guide put together by 35 young people sharing their own stories to help others find their way through what is, without a doubt, one of life's toughest diagnoses.
Wow, just listen to that quote for a second. It's from their social worker, Rachel, and it pretty much captures the entire journey we're about to explore. It's a story that starts in a place of deep, profound fear and ends, well, it ends in a place of understanding and, yeah, even laughter. It tells us right from the start that things can and do get better.
And take a look at this. This is where it all started. This wasn't some cold, sterile office. It all began in a group therapy session. You know, this was the space where they could finally share what they were going through and start to chip away at that awful feeling of isolation. This is where the foundation was laid for everything else.
To really get what they went through, we have to go back to the beginning, back to that first absolutely terrifying moment of a psychotic episode. I mean, we're talking about a complete break from reality, where the world as you know it just gets flipped completely upside down.
For a lot of them, it started with this little seed of paranoia. For Genevieve, it was this creeping feeling that she was being watched, that her phone was tapped. That's the moment when something you use every single day suddenly feels like a threat.
And that paranoia, it just grows. It can take over everything. For Joseph, a doctor, someone who's supposed to help you, was suddenly transformed into the head of the mafia. It just goes to show you how powerful these delusions are. They can completely rewrite who people are in your life.
But then you hear Meredith's story, and her experience was totally different. But it was just as real to her. And that's a really key thing to understand. These experiences aren't one size fits all. They're deeply, deeply personal and weave themselves into your life in these very specific ways.
So let's go back to Genevieve for a second. That fear about her phone? Well, it escalated. Pretty soon, she was convinced her entire house was bugged with cameras. It got so intense that she looked at her own mother and asked why she was trying to poison her. That's how completely this new reality can take over.
So, what happens next? For many of these young people, the next step is the hospital. And while it's an absolutely necessary step for safety and to start getting help, they all share that it's often one of the most frightening experiences of their entire lives.
Roman just puts it so simply, doesn't he? It was scary being in the hospital. That's it. That's the feeling. You've got locked doors, you've lost your freedom, you have no idea what's going on. It's just plain terrifying.
And then you hear a story like Sharon's, and it just stops you in your tracks. She describes waking up strapped to a bed, completely unable to move. She could see her mom, who'd driven through a snowstorm just to be there, but she couldn't reach out. She couldn't touch her. Can you imagine that feeling of utter helplessness? James's story really brings home the sheer disorientation of it all. When your reality gets that bizarre, your brain just scrambles to make sense of it. For him, the only way he could process it was to decide it was all some kind of elaborate joke or maybe a test he had to pass to get his wife back.
And this is James. What's so crucial about his story is the advice he gives. He says, find help from the other people in the hospital with you. He learned not to be afraid of the other patients, but to see them as a support system. It's pretty amazing how community can start to grow in the most unlikely of places.
Okay, so this is where everything starts to change. This is the real turning point. This is where all that fear and confusion started to transform into a shared purpose. They had this desire to take what they'd been through and build something to help other people. That shift, from patient to author, from needing help to providing hope, that's the real heart of this entire project.
And you know what sparked it all? This one simple question. Their social worker just turned to the group and asked, what could we do to help other people who are just starting this journey? How can we make them not feel so alone?
And the answer came right from them. Meredith and Joseph just said it. We could write something, a book. In that moment, they realized that all their stories, all their experiences, actually held this immense power. They could create the exact guide they all wished they'd had when they were first hospitalized, scared, and completely confused. So this book they decided to write, it had a very clear mission. The goal was to give people the understanding they themselves had been so desperate for. It was about answering those huge, fundamental questions and offering some real, tangible hope. And this is maybe the biggest, most isolating question of them all. When you're going through something like this, it's got to feel like you are the only person in the entire world this has ever happened to. Am I the only one?
The answer is a clear, resounding, absolute no. Not even close. There are over 2 million people in the United States with schizophrenia. That's 1% of the whole world's population. You are so far from being alone.
And here it is. This is why they wrote the book, straight from them. They wanted to show that people do get better. They wanted to make the whole thing less scary for the next person, to fight that loneliness, to help people understand that the symptoms are part of the illness. They are not who you are. And, so importantly, to change those negative stereotypes and just show the world that they wanted to help.
In the end, it all comes down to this simple, powerful statement. This isn't a clinical manual. It's not some detached research paper. It is their story, offered with this incredibly profound and generous hope that it might just make the journey a little bit easier for the next person who has to walk that path.